what we eat matters. It matters not just for our physical health, but also for our spiritual health. It matters to God. God cares about the body. Therefore, he cares about how we steward the body. So how should we think of health and wellness and nutrition from a Christian and biblical perspective? A Christian nutritionist, Chelsea Blackbird, is here today to break it all down for us. She has been doing this for 20 years and she has a lot of really interesting insights, not just into physical nutrition, but also into our spiritual health and how these two are tied together. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com. Use code Allie at checkout. That's goodranchers.com, code Allie. Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Can you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Chelsea Blackbird, and I love bringing together the topic of health and through a biblical lens. I never thought I would be doing anything like this, but about 20 years ago, I was facing my own health challenges. I grew up with a genetic skin condition that I went to doctors for about 20 years. Finally kind of hit a dead end road with them. They couldn't do anything more for me. I took every cream, every pill that they recommended, had major surgery, and then it was kind of like, we can't help you anymore. So there was that. I had chronic digestive issues growing up, but I just thought they were normal. But it wasn't until I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility that I really became desperate for a solution.
Right.
And my husband was not on board with the direction that the doctors wanted to take me. So I started researching, looking around, found a doctor with a holistic approach. I found a really great book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility. The holistic doctor changed my diet, gave me some supplements, filled in some gaps, and 6 weeks later, I was pregnant.
Wow.
Yes.
So this is 20-ish years ago in small town Texas.
Yes.
How in the world did you go about finding this person?
How did I find him? Well, he was in the bigger town not far from me. I honestly can't even remember how I found him. It was just through researching.
I guess God made the connection.
Yes. Absolutely a divine connection. And that really started me on the journey of just being hungry to learn more about that, about nutrition and health. And so I just started reading and finally went back to become certified as a holistic practitioner. And that's what I've been doing for the last, 10, 12, 11 years. As I was going through this and learning all of these things, I felt this strong pull from God to call myself the Christian nutritionist. Every time I would read my Bible, all I could see was health advice, frankly. It was like God put a lens over my eyes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. There's so much information out there, conflicting information. And so it just started to make sense to me. God made our body. Who knows better what our body needs than the creator of our body, right? And so I really just started learning, diving into that. I really resisted God. I resisted that call when he was calling me to that, because I'm like, I don't know enough about the Bible, God, and I'm new to this nutrition stuff, and who am I? And sometimes I like to, eat chips and drink some wine. Maybe I'm not the best person for this job. But when God calls you to do something, you do it. He wasn't letting up, and so here I am.
So what did your holistic doctor recommend to you that was so revolutionary in your life? And that quickly, you said 6 weeks later you were pregnant.
6 weeks, yes. And it was a combination of reading that book, which really
Taking Charge of Your Fertility.
Yes, retaught me about my body, which honestly I really hadn't thought of since 4th grade when you learn, you learn in school.
I mean, that's most of us.
Yes, who's talking about it? Who's really teaching you about your body and timing and hormones and all of these things, right? Once you kind of get past that initial education. So it was a matter of that. Also, he put me on a gluten-free diet.
Okay.
And gave me some essential fatty acid supplements.
Wow.
Basically, I was really lacking in essential fatty acids.
Did he tell you what his thinking was behind the gluten-free diet?
No.
Because that was before gluten-free, kind of has been trendier. I know it's not a trend for everyone, but over the past few years, it's been more common for people to be gluten-free. But 20 years ago, it wasn't really.
It wasn't. I'd heard of it. I have celiac in my family. I have a couple aunts with celiac disease. So it was familiar to me, and I'd kind of toyed with it off and on. He really didn't. I knew enough that gluten could be inflammatory, and so I think that was a big part of it. And at the time, I honestly didn't even understand the significance of the fatty acids and why that was important. But just looking back now, I can see my body was not ready to grow a baby. It did not have what it needed, and I think that is one thing that people don't pay enough attention to is that when something's off with the body, that is a sign that there's an imbalance or a nutritional need or something that needs to be changed. And I always like to remind people that our bodies are not against us. Our bodies are for us. God made our bodies incredibly smart and resilient and wired for wellness. And when we give it what it needs, it can do its job better.
Yeah.
And so always just to be making those connections and being aware of those connections.
So what did it look like? What has it looked like being a Christian nutritionist? What are you offering people?
Really just looking at health and nutrition from the purpose of the body. I think a lot of us, when we're thinking about health, we're thinking of it very much only from the physicality of our appearance and how we look, right? I think as Christians, we really need to take a look at the true purpose of the body. What is the purpose of the body? It is not to hit a certain number on the scale or to, hit a certain size of jeans or even to eat perfectly. Our bodies are meant to be a vessel of the Holy Spirit. 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, do you not know that your body is a holy temple, given from God? You are not your own. So we are image bearers. We are the hands and feet of Christ in the world. And I believe that God has given every person gifts and a special way to bless the world. And we just show up so much more fully to that, to offer that to our family and our friends and our workplace and our communities when we feel well. When we feel well, we serve well. When we feel good in and about our body. And so that is a huge piece of it, is just kind of reframing the way that we look at taking care of our body and that self-stewardship, that stewardship that we are called to be in these bodies.
All right, quick pause to tell you about our first sponsor for the day, Carly Jean Los Angeles. Today, it's a rare day that I am actually not wearing CJLA. That's only because I am wearing my own merch. That's how it goes. I am either wearing Carly Jean Los Angeles or I'm wearing my own merch. I love Carly Jean Los Angeles. I love it in every stage of life, every season of the year. It's so flattering. It's so comfortable. I love that Carly and her family love the Lord. They're unapologetic about that, but it just fits my style so well. I'm a very simple gal. I want some high quality clothes that I can wear whenever, wherever, whether I'm pregnant or postpartum or neither of those things. And that's what Carly Jean Los Angeles offers me. I especially love their denim. I have tried lots of other jeans, all kinds of different designers to try to find something even better than CJLA denim. Have not found it. Honestly and truly, it's the most flattering and most comfortable. Go to CarlyJeanLosAngeles.com. Use code RELATABLE25 for $25 off an order of $125 or more, or RELATABLE50 for $50 off an order of $200 or more. Go to CarlyJeanLosAngeles.com. So how should Christians, that's how Christians kind of view the body. How do we view food then? Because there's so many different messages that, especially as women, have been kind of competing in our minds. I feel like guys in athletics, they learn pretty early on that food is fuel. For us, or at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, but it felt less like I would use food for fuel and more like I was competing against it, or like competing against my hunger.
Right.
and, only wanting to eat as much as what would satiate you. You go through your preteen, your teenage years. The worst thing that you can think of is not looking good in the mirror, or not being comfortable in your skin, or not fitting into a certain size. And so you learn very early on to kind of compete against your hunger, to compete against food, to see your body as an enemy. And so how do you fight back against all of those messages that especially women have carried with us for so long about what we eat?
Right. First and foremost, we have to look, again, as I said, the creator of our body knows the perfect thing that our body needs, right? And so when we look to scripture, we know that he gave us foods from the plant kingdom, Genesis 1:26, and he gave us foods from the animal kingdom, Genesis 9:3. And our body requires certain things from both of those kingdoms to be healthy. And again, viewing the body as being healthy enough to do the work that we're called to do in the world, to glorify the Lord, to do our kingdom work, whether that is being a mother or being a professional or just being kind to the people in our community. So much of how we show up to do that is determined by the foods that we eat, the functioning of our body, the way that we feel, our moods, everything that we put in our body determines so much about that. And so as far as all the conflicting messages, there's so much, right? It's like, should you be keto or carnivore or vegetarian? Or fat's bad? Are they good? I mean, so much has changed just in, my lifetime that it's overwhelming. And I think it's very hard for all of us to really know what is the best thing to do here.
Yeah.
But just taking it back to those foundational elements, we need plant foods, we need animal foods. Each of those kingdoms offers something very important for the body to run well. From the animal kingdom, we get our proteins, our amino acids, essential amino acids that our body must use to repair and rebuild our body. And from the plant kingdom, we get carbohydrates, we get phytonutrients, we get fiber, we get some vitamins and minerals from both of the kingdoms, we get fats from both of the kingdoms. And so when we start looking at the as food, kind of as fuel, it is a good thing to come around and know that, yes, our body needs to be fueled. Our body is constantly rebuilding and repairing itself. I think a lot of people don't think about that our body is constantly making new gut cells, new skin cells, new liver cells, new bones. Where do you get the material to do that? Where does your body get the material to do that? From the food that you eat. And so if you're, eating ding dongs and soda, well, you're not giving your body a lot of good material to use to build your body, to run your body, to fuel your body. And so when we think of it that way, just really understanding that we need these good materials for our body to be well, to be sound, to be fit physically, spiritually, and mentally. And again, I think as women, when we do change that viewpoint from, thinking of food and weight and thinking all of these things that are against us and thinking, this is for us, this is for me, this is so I can live into everything that God created me to be. And it's just a shift of mind.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. I don't know if it's a trend or if it's just popular, whatever it is, but to say that we should only be eating this or only be eating that, or we should cut all of this or cut all of that. And I'm thinking of carnivore, I'm thinking of veganism. And honestly, I know people in both of those camps who swear by how they eat, who swear that all we need is leafy greens and vegetables, juice, things like that, and maybe even raw vegetables. And then I know people who do carnivore who swear by that. And they say, it's so much protein. I'm so full. I'm never craving anything. I'm never hungry. I've built so much muscle. And then I know people who have done veganism to help fight cancer and things like that. And so it's hard to argue with people's personal testimony, because if that works for them, then that's great. But I've also heard other nutritionists like you say, well, we really aren't getting everything that we need if we are only eating from one food group. But it's hard for someone like me who doesn't have all the expertise to really know what's true. Because these people who have these incredible stories, but also who seem to know a lot more than I do, are saying with such authority, no, if you eat meat, then you're probably going to get cancer. Or if you eat leafy greens, those leafy greens are telling you not to eat them because they're bitter. I'm like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe. I'll just go to In-N-Out again.
Right. Well, I think there's a time and a place for therapeutic diets. And somebody could use a vegan diet or a carnivore diet or a keto diet therapeutically. And there's nothing wrong with that.
In that it's for like one purpose, one ailment,
yes,
or for a specific purpose of trying to heal something.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And temporary, maybe 3 to 4 months, maybe longer. It can depend. But ultimately, in the big picture, I think the ideal diet, again, when we go back and look at scripture, Genesis 1:26, God gave us plants. Genesis 9:3, God gave us meat. And really that is the ideal diet, a combination of clean versions of plant food and animal food is really what we are best meant to eat. And I encounter a lot of people that believe that because we originated in the garden, that we should be vegetarian.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That comes up a lot. And I like to remind people that we did get kicked out of the garden.
Yeah.
And that God gave us the permission to eat meat in Genesis 9:3. And not only that, but he gave us direction about what is the best meat to eat. And when we look at the food laws he gave the Israelites in Leviticus, I think it surprises people to know that what he recommended were the ruminant animals, cattle, bison, deer, sheep, goat, all red meat.
Right.
Right. And that is very opposite of the narrative that we hear today, that meat will cause cancer and such. And so, again, that is one of those things coming back to our godly compass. For me, anyway, that is when I come back to my godly compass and think, okay, God recommended this kind of meat. This cannot be bad for me.
And when it comes to kinds of meat, how should we look at how things are being processed? I mean, that's not something that I know very much about at all. I mean, I get my meat from Good Ranchers, as people on this podcast know, but most people are going into the grocery store and they're just kind of doing their best. They might look at the composition of, lean meat versus fatty meat, but that's about all they know. And I don't even know how to necessarily control how it's being processed or anything. So how do we look at, if we're going to eat food from all these different camps, how do we look at their characteristics? How do we make the best choice for the best things within those groups?
Sure. Well, when it comes to meat specifically, obviously it's just like it's best for us to eat our God-given diet, it is best for the animal to eat their God-given diet. Right. So the more that we can source our protein from animals that were fed well, raised well, that is ideal. My husband is a grass-fed cattle rancher. So, I see this up close and personal. That said, sometimes that can be hard to find. Sometimes that can be out of people's budget.
Right.
And even labeling can be kind of confusing, right? Because something can say this is grass-fed, but all cattle are grass-fed for part of their life, but not 100% of their life.
So it has to be grass-finished.
It has to be grass-finished, right? Okay. Yes.
So that means grass-finished means that they're only eating the grass, right? Because if they're grass-fed but not grass-finished, it could mean that they're fattening up towards the end of their life with extra stuff that we wouldn't want.
Correct. They're finished on grain, typically, and unfortunately, it's usually not high quality. It's genetically modified corn and soy. And so again, that can lead to illness for the animals, which would require some shots, things like that, right? And so, however, I don't like to scare people, put fear in people about what to eat. But I do have some tips about what you should do. You go to the grocery store and you're looking at your meat. The thing is, when you are choosing your red meat, say your beef or your bison, and those come from ruminant animals. I think this is so fascinating.
And what's ruminant?
Ruminant animals are animals that have a 4-part digestive system. Okay, this is different from a monogastric animal like a chicken or a pig or a person. We are a monogastric animal, one stomach. Okay, ruminants have 4 stomachs. It takes them closer to 24 hours to digest. They are typically they're herbivores, right? And so they are utilizing plant nutrition, turning it into amino acids and all of these wonderful nutrients that they pass on to us when we eat them. And so it's something about this wonderful ruminant digestive process that they can do that. But also that longer digestive process allows them more time and more capability to process out some of the toxic effects of what they might be encountering. And so I tell people, if you are on a budget or you have a lack of access to things, really going for your beef is going to be more forgiving, or a ruminant animal food, beef, bison, sheep, goat, elk, is going to be more forgiving in that kind of toxic arena, whereas something like chicken or pork, they hold on to more toxins, if you will. And another thing to consider is that animals, just like humans, hold toxins in our fat cells. That's where we store them, and it's beautiful, God's beautiful design to keep toxins away from our vital organs. And so if you are unable to access or afford, grass-fed beef or pastured chicken, something like that, or pastured pork, going for the leaner cuts is a good idea.
Okay, so leaner cuts of beef.
Leaner cuts of meat. If you, yes.
Okay, so that's less fat, which means less toxins that you would be getting.
Right. The lower the quality, then I would stick more for the lower fat. But otherwise, if you are able to access, grass-fed beef, pastured pork or chicken, then I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay.
Because, animal fats offer fat-soluble vitamins. There are health benefits to eating the animal in its entirety if it's good quality.
Okay, gotcha. And then, because we do hear so often that, well, I eat meat, but only chicken. I don't want to eat any red meat. We are kind of made to believe that chicken is actually the healthiest form of meat for us. But you're saying because of that, the one chamber.
The monogastric stomach, yes.
Yes, we could get more toxins from chicken than we would from beef, possibly.
Yes, and I don't want to scare people from chicken. Eat chicken, eat fish, eat, red meat, eat all of it. Just please eat protein. Please eat protein from animal sources. That's, I really try to get people, so many women especially, undereat protein. It is a huge problem.
Definitely do, and I want to talk to you about that.
Yes. Yeah. And so, but again, when we're trying to make the best choices we can, what we have access to, what is in our budget. Food is so expensive right now, and it's tough. And so if, when we're in the grocery store making those decisions, yes, that red meat is going to be more forgiving as far as toxicity, and going for the, lower fat cuts. It's not time to, eat all the ribeyes if you are, you can't get a very high quality meat.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about protein then.
Okay.
Because that is obviously one benefit to a carnivore diet.
Yes.
They say you're going to get protein, and that is one complaint that people have if they're going all vegan or something. That's just tough to get, especially natural forms of protein. Of course, you can get protein powders and things like that, but then you run into all different kinds of ingredients. So you've already advocated for basically a diet that takes the best of every kind of group.
Yes.
But how much should we be eating of what?
Right.
Because it's also been popular to say just do almost all leafy greens and then kind of add in the protein when you can, but it doesn't sound like that's what you would recommend.
I recommend a pretty high protein diet. I would say between 70 to 90 grams.
Okay.
Most days, if you can swing it, that's high. But a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some would even recommend higher than that and recommend 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal lean body mass. So lean body mass is everything in your body besides fat. It includes your muscle, the water, everything. And so it's not your weight. Yeah. But like my ideal lean body mass at my height at 5'6" is, if I'm remembering correctly, is 108.
Yeah, how do you know that?
There's a chart.
Look it up?
Oh, you can just search it.
Okay, so it's not individual. It's really just for like your height.
Yes.
You can figure it out.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And so for somebody that is really targeting maybe weight loss or trying to tone up, build muscle, I recommend going closer to that.
Okay.
But for just kind of your everyday person and maybe somebody that's not used to eating very much protein, 70 to 90 grams is kind of a nice range to go towards. And animal protein, because what we're after in protein are amino acids, essential amino acids. Those are the building blocks of the body. That is what makes your body, that is what your body uses to repair, build your cells. And we get those amino acids, the essential amino acids, so much more bioavailably from animal protein than we do from plants. So animal foods, animal proteins are considered a complete protein because they have all of those 8 essential amino acids that we need in the right ratios, in the right amounts to each other.
Okay.
Whereas a plant protein has some of these amino acids, doesn't have quite the amount of them, and not in the right ratio. So for example, to get the same amount of protein from, say, like quinoa and, a 3-ounce piece of steak, you'd have to have like 3 cups of quinoa or like a little 3 or 4 ounce piece of meat. Well, then what's happening? Well, I don't know about you. If I eat 3 cups of quinoa, I'm going to be bloated.
Yeah. And I'm going to be hungry in like 30 minutes.
It's right. You're going to be bloated. It's not that filling. And there's a high energy or caloric load that comes with that. When you can get those amino acids that you need so much more efficiently from a small piece of meat. And so that's where the animal kingdom shines, right? Is the essential amino acids, where your plant kingdom is going to give you that fiber and some of those phytonutrients that you need. And so that's really what I like to remind people, is that both kingdoms have their strengths, right? But the amino acids, boy, the animal kingdom, hands down, is the winner there.
Okay. So 70 to 90 grams of protein, you would say. And then what about fat and carbs? What are you aiming for?
Okay, so with fat and carbs, carbs, I like to keep those under about 100 grams. And that can be ish. I'm kind of ish. It depends. Depends on how much you move. It depends on the quality of those carbohydrates. But I would say the more real food, the way God made it, the more real food, carbohydrates that you're eating from plants, your leafy greens and your produce, basically.
Okay.
You can eat more. You can get away with more. But about 100 grams or less is a good target.
Okay. So for our carbs, you recommend getting those mostly from vegetables rather than, say, bread?
Ideally, yes. Although I'm not against bread.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that, I was gluten-free for 10 years. And in the last year, I started milling my own wheat and baking bread.
Wow. That's awesome.
Huge change.
Yes.
And so I eat bread every day, practically.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
But it's bread that you are making.
High quality.
Okay.
High quality. And also that can fit in your carb range. That's the thing, is that, yes, you want to get a lot of vegetables. You want to get some fruit. Whole grains are not a bad thing either. Quinoa is not a bad food. Beans are, absolutely have some protein and have some things in them, fiber and such. Again, fiber, some of those phytonutrients from the plant foods. But the amino acids, leave that to the animal kingdom for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and then fat. There are also some differing theories on how much fat we should have. There definitely was a craze at one point in the 90s and early 2000s where like every snack would say like 0 grams of fat or no trans fat or whatever. So what is your thought on how much fat we should be eating?
Right. Everything was low fat, and now everything's like fat.
Full fat.
Yeah. Eat everything like fat.
Yeah.
So really, I kind of fill in the blanks with the fat after that. So if we're eating 70 to 90 grams of protein, we are keeping our carbohydrates at about less than 100 grams, then the rest will be made up from fat. And that can vary. That could be 70 to 100 grams of fat, 60 to 100 grams of fat, somewhere in there, once you kind of balance all those macronutrient ratios. The thing to remember is that carbohydrates and fats are both forms of energy, okay? And that's what our body uses as fuel. And so those are things that we want to consider in relationship together. When one is up, the other needs to be kind of down. And so I always say proteins are steady Eddie. We stay steady with the protein. That's not going to change that much. But where we do some manipulation is with our carbohydrates and fats. And so with the higher fat diet, you're going to have less carbohydrates. That might look more like 50 grams or 25 grams. Or if you're having more carbs, we're going to bring those fats down a little bit more. So it's kind of a balance between that.
Just balance. And what would you say some of the best sources of healthy fat are?
From the plant kingdom, I would say extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil. Those are probably the best. From the animal kingdom, your butter, high quality tallow, just those, again, if you are able to source those good grass-fed meats or pastured meats, that fat has some good fat-soluble vitamins in there. So, if you think of our early ancestors, especially here in America, that is the fat that they would have eaten. It would have come from these animal foods, right? Because in the early 1900s, they're not importing a lot of olive oil and coconut oil, right? So they would have really relied on butter and tallow and lard and those things. Yeah. And so that is, and today we're like, don't eat fat, don't eat butter, don't eat, beef and all those things. But we got to think historically. I think our common sense just flies out the window when it comes to this stuff.
All right, next sponsor for the day is Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes has been the #1 trusted software for over 23 years for Christians seeking to live a porn-free life. Victory by Covenant Eyes is a powerful tool that helps Christians who are serious and want to quit porn for good or never start. Victory combines industry-leading technology and decades of experience and leadership in recovery content, accountability, and behavioral change. There's accountability features built in and the optional blocking technology. It's an unparalleled tool in the fight to live a porn-free life. Once installed, Victory runs silently in the background of your devices and uses cutting-edge AI technology to watch the screen for behavior that doesn't match your goals. You can invite a friend or a trusted ally, someone that can walk beside you through the ups and downs of recovery, that will be sent a report and can see what you're looking at. People who have thought porn will tell you that that accountability is really helpful in making sure that all the content they're consuming is content that is truly honoring the Lord. So check out covenanteyes.com/Allie, covenanteyes.com/Allie. What is a typical day of eating like for you? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
So I eat a lot of eggs. Love eggs.
So the eggs, I did have a question about the eggs because we talked about chickens and how sometimes, just depending, they can have more toxins, or they have the propensity to have more toxins because of that single chamber of the stomach. But does that count for the eggs? Like, that might seem like a silly question,
no, it's not, but a silly
I don't know if
it's
the same concern that we have with the meat of the chicken.
Right. We do want to be concerned and aware of quality of the egg. So again, the higher quality of the chicken, the higher quality of the egg, depends on what the chicken was fed, how high quality the egg is. Again, chickens are supposed to be out pecking around, eating grass and grubs and different things like that. Yeah. And when they do, they're very healthy. They have healthy meat and they produce healthy eggs. The more that is, most chickens are kept in a cage, and they're, they don't never see the light of day. Yeah. And they're going to produce these eggs. They're still going to have some nutritional value. They're just not going to be as healthy as ones that are, pastured, right? So,
and the chickens are stressed out in those little chambers, right? And I've heard that can affect also what gets into the egg, just like the different hormones and things that are happening when you're under stress. They're different than the hormones that are present or elevated when you're where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. And those chickens are fed genetically modified corn and soy, and there are people that are so sensitive that they could eat an egg that was not pastured, and it could set off a reaction because of what the chicken ate and produced the egg, which is, becoming alarmingly more and more common, sadly, with food sensitivities and such. But so there's something to be said there. But again, not to scare people. I don't want to scare people off from eating eggs or chicken or meat or anything.
Yeah.
You just do the best you can.
Yeah.
You do the best you can, but the higher quality you can get, it's absolutely, you're going to get more nutrition.
Right.
It's going to be higher quality. If you crack an egg, so we have chickens, and when you see an egg that was from a pasture chicken, I mean, the yolk is just this beautiful, vibrant, orangey yellow, right? And then when you see the yolk of an egg from a chicken that was, didn't have as good living conditions, it's very pale,
it's light yellow.
Yeah. It's just not as rich in those vitamins and those nutrients. And so you're just going to get so much more from those animals when they're fed well and raised well.
Yeah. So you eat a lot of eggs.
A ton of eggs. Yes, a ton of eggs. So breakfast might be something like scrambled eggs. Maybe I might scramble up some spinach in there, some cheese, make like an omelet, maybe a piece of toast with that. Lunch is usually leftovers from dinner, or I might make some tuna fish with apple,
tuna fish.
Something like that. Dinner is usually a meat and a vegetable and some kind of carbohydrate, like meat and potatoes and salad.
Yeah.
Like husbands love me. I'm like, yeah, eat your meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Tell their wives, yes,
yeah,
make meat and potatoes. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a very typical kind of meal.
Okay. So that's typically what you're eating. Are you a snacker at all?
I try not to snack.
Okay. And what is your thought on snack? That's another theory that I've heard over the years, that we should just be eating little things throughout the day rather than the big meals.
No. No, I know. You're right. I've heard, that is definitely one of those things. And the thing is, there's no one perfect way that works for every single person, right? It really depends. I think ideally our bodies should be able to have a meal and then go 3 to 4 hours and then have another meal. What's happening in that time that you're not eating, there's a lot of digestion going on. Our body needs to complete that digestive process. It takes 2 to 3 hours. When we're constantly eating all day, we're keeping our digestive system engaged. And over time, that can be hard on the digestive system. Also, in between meals, your body is being able to better switch between fuels for burning, between being a sugar burner or a fat burner. If you're constantly eating, you're really not giving your body enough time to burn stored energy, the sugar and the fat on your body, if you're always eating energy. So we want our bodies to be able to have opportunity to burn some of that stored energy. But if we're eating all day, that's not going to be happening. So eating, 3 meals, sometimes 2 meals for people, 2 meals and a snack. In that case, that's fine. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not that hungry for lunch, so I might have something, a smaller meal, maybe cottage cheese or something like that. Or
Okay. Okay. So you're down with cheese.
Oh, yes.
That's another thing, though, that some people are like, no, I know that you're okay with dairy because of animal products, but some people are anti-cheese. So that's good to know. I like cheese.
I love cheese, too.
I especially love goat cheese. It's my favorite.
Yes.
Okay. What is your thought on intermittent fasting?
Love it.
You do? Okay. I wasn't sure. Because again, this is highly contested stuff. Okay,
right.
Tell me.
This is another topic, because intermittent fasting has, kind of had its glory, and now it's being attacked, right? So I feel like everything has its moments, like
so true, yeah.
Right, like eat all the carbs, with the food pyramid. No, don't eat the carbs, eat all the fat. No, we're always, building it up and then tearing it down. Same with intermittent fasting. I think what a good common sense thing to remember is that historically, people ate dinner and then they stopped, and then they didn't eat till breakfast. And that was probably about 12 hours. And it really wasn't until the onset of all the processed food and food globalization and all this access to food all the time, right? It's,
midnight snack.
I'm drifting into the kitchen, making popcorn or eating ice cream or whatever it is. That is not the natural, what has been going on for forever and ever. All of this eating all the time is really a new phenomenon. And our body needs that digestive rest. And so I love, stopping at about, a decent time, not long after sunset, ideally. And you give your body that time that needs 2 to 3 hours to digest. And then you go to sleep, and then your body goes into detoxification mode. When you eat too late, you extend that digestion time, and your body can't go into detox mode.
What is detox mode?
Well, at night is when we do all of our repair processes. We're synthesizing memories. Our body's rebuilding muscle. It's repairing tissue. Our hormones are resetting. Our hormones are telling our brain about how much energy we have to store, to burn. All kinds of things are happening at night, right? And so those are the things that are supposed to happen when we are without food. And then there are certain things that are supposed to happen during the day when we eat food. So it's really our circadian rhythm. And eating is supposed to happen during the day. Digestion, absorption, utilizing and getting all this energy. At night, we're meant to burn energy, burn fat, burn calories, repair, detoxify, and do all of those things. Eating too late puts those processes off, delays those processes. So we really shortchange ourselves from our detoxification processes when we eat too late.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
And so that is one of the biggest advantages to intermittent fasting. And it doesn't have to be a super long time, 12 to 16 hours. I average about a 14-hour fast most days. Sometimes it's closer to 12. Sometimes I'll go higher and it's 16. I think, you definitely have to discern what's best for where you are in your stage and season of life. There's a lot of hormonal components and such to it,
and you don't want to get into almost like starvation mode because I've unintentionally fasted to where I'll say I'm running out the door and I just didn't eat breakfast, and then I'm on the go and I can't eat until 1. Well, then all I crave is carbs, sugar, that quick energy because I'm so hungry.
Yes.
And so I guess there's some kind of balance, and it also depends on the time of day that you're doing it. Obviously, if you're asleep, then I guess you can wake up and eat. That's different than trying to go all day and constantly thinking about food and then just crashing, at 3 p.m. or whenever.
Right. Ideally, we want to eat our food when the sun is out.
Makes sense.
Yes. I always say I like to eat with the sun in the sun, eat when the sun is out, eat with a very receiving, grateful attitude. Give thanks to God for our meal. That puts us in a state of receiving and really helps our body prepare to release the digestive enzymes and the hormones and everything we need to really receive and utilize that food well.
Yeah.
And then cut it off not long after sunset. If we look biblically, their largest meal of the day was dinner, and they ate it right around sunset, but before it was completely dark outside. And so really trying to wrap up dinner about, dark.
Yeah.
And then going into that nice time in the evening and night when we're sleeping, repairing, rebuilding, and resetting.
Next sponsor for the day is Good Ranchers. We're talking about the importance of eating healthy and making sure that what you're putting in your body is really high quality, and Good Ranchers offers that for you. It's what I rely on for meat. It's what we have eaten for several years now. We're so thankful for it. We always have a freezer full of better than organic chicken, pre-marinated and non-pre-marinated, craft beef. We love the ground beef. It's probably what we eat the most. Bacon. It's all really good stuff. And of course, the owners of Good Ranchers love America and they love the Lord. They have felt called since they started the company to support American farms and ranches by getting all their meat from these sources. Right now, when you order with my code, you can get an added 2.25 pounds of free chicken breasts added to every order. Go to goodranchers.com, code Allie. That's goodranchers.com, code Allie. So you mentioned kind of stopping and thanking God for the food, and that's not a good practice only spiritually, but also that prepares our body. And so that just makes me think of how often we're on the go with fast food and we're just grabbing it. And when it's when it's bad processed food, you almost feel bad thanking God for it. You're like, please help this go to the nourishment of my body, even though it's French chicken fingers. Yeah. And so I could see how that kind of makes a difference in how we treat our food and how I guess our body receives those nutrients. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Digestion begins in the brain, and you have to be in a parasympathetic state, which just means in a relaxed state. And when we're moving and we're working and we're thinking about stressful things, we are in a sympathetic state. And so our body's not really in in the state of receiving where it's going to release these.
It's in fight or flight.
It's in fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, and I was thinking, about you when my kids were babies. I mean, I was just standing at the counter with a baby, like throwing food at people. Like, you're just doing the best you can,
I feel
right?
like I never sit down and eat. I know.
And
it's bad.
There's a season, right? But being more aware of that, sitting down when you can, because it is very hard for your body to digest. And this leads to a lot of digestive issues for people.
Yeah.
And digestion is, if we can't digest our food well, then you could be eating the perfect diet. But if the nutrients can't get to where they need to go because you're not digesting well, that's not helping your body out. So yes, sitting down is huge.
What happens to your body when you're eating only in fight or flight mode? I mean, I'm just trying to think through this logically. It seems like if you were really in fight or flight, like your body would be like, okay, I got to hold on to this because I don't know, I'm running from a bear or something. So I could see how it'd be difficult to lose weight. Again, even if you're eating the right things, but you're always in fight or flight while you're eating, running.
Right.
And what I mean by fight or flight is like, you're stressed.
Yes.
You're stressed out, which I know a lot of moms of toddlers are stressed out. It's not like you're sad or angry. It's just you got a lot of different things vying for your attention. So I could see how it'd be difficult to lose weight in those situations because your body might be thinking, I need to hold on to everything that I can because I don't know when I'm going to get another meal or whatever.
Exactly. Hold on to the energy. Absolutely. And so I do recommend as much as you can. I mean, being a mom of littles is a challenging time, but I just don't think people even realize that we need to be seated. Number one, this was so funny when I was explaining this to my family. My dad was like, "Well, I just thought if you're standing up, it's a bit straighter shot,
Yeah,
to be
just go right down.
That's not how it works. No, we need to be seated. We have to be in that restful posture as much as we possibly can. We want to chew our food really well, and it sounds like old grandma advice, but this is where we start releasing enzymes that help us break down carbohydrates. People are like just cranking through, trying to hurry and eat. We don't release all those things. Our body has to release the enzymes, the stomach acid to break down our food, and that way and move through the rest of the body so we can absorb the nutrients. So if your body can't do that process well and it's feeling like it's not getting the nutrition it needs, your body will hold on to nutrition, hold on to weight for a rainy day.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'm doing every possible thing wrong. I eat I eat really fast. I've always been like a fast eater. My husband and I both do, and I am almost always eating on the go. My breakfast does not contain protein. I'm just telling on myself here. It is typically, now it is like, it's sourdough bread, real sourdough bread, not from the store, that's actually made from scratch. So that's a little better.
Absolutely.
And butter and a little bit of salt. Maybe not the worst thing in the world, but also not the best thing in the world to last me until like, I usually can't eat lunch until 1:30.
Right.
Lunch is honestly probably my hardest meal because I feel hungriest at lunch and I'm also still in some kind of hurry. And so I also don't get a ton of protein typically. And I'm just saying this because I bet there's a lot of people that can relate to this out there. I typically don't eat a lot of protein until dinner. And then, okay, it might be a steak or chicken or something with like sweet potatoes, green beans. It's typically kind of the meal that you described too. A green, some kind of carb, and a meat. So I know I'm not getting anywhere close to 70 to 90 grams. And every day I want it to be different, and every day it's not different. And even dinner, I'm standing up. And then sometimes if it's like, oh my gosh, we didn't even prepare for dinner, I forgot to take the meat out to thaw, then it is some kind of like takeout or something like that. And I know some people say that they lose weight when they're breastfeeding. I do not lose weight when I'm breastfeeding. I typically don't start losing weight until like 6 months to a year after birth because I start breastfeeding less. I don't know. When I'm breastfeeding, my body is like, I'm going to hold on to everything I possibly can. And I have tried to cut things out or to eat less while breastfeeding, and it affects my milk supply. And so, yeah. Anyway, that's like the state of my nutrition, which is not great at all right now. A lot of it is, just to be honest, like a lack of discipline and some laziness on my part, just plain and simple. And some of it is just like not knowing what to do and just do every meal feels like I'm just doing what works,
Right.
you know? So, yeah.
It definitely takes some planning. But I would say, yes, protein at that first meal of the day is huge. It kind of sets the tone for the whole day,
Yeah.
right? You'd be less hungry at lunch if you did that, right? And protein's really important first meal of the day. As we have been doing our detoxification process and repairing all night, our body's using all those amino acids, right, that we get from protein to do that. So when we wake up in the morning, we're in kind of a catabolic, kind of broken down state, and our body needs a replenishment of those amino acids. And so it's a really important time to restock the body with the amino acids for the day. I would say, the morning meal and then the evening meal are the two most critical times for the protein. And then also, again, like you're not going to feel as hungry. And if you haven't eaten very much, and by the time 1 o'clock's rolling around, your body's like, just give me anything.
Yeah.
Just put anything in here so I can keep going, right? Your body's really seeking energy, and we don't always make the best choices. But I make a one thing that kind of saves me. I call it a high protein egg casserole, and it is a dozen eggs, a carton of cottage cheese, blended together over a pack of sausage, cooked sausage, put it in like a Pyrex pan, put some grated cheese on top, and then pour that egg mixture with the cottage cheese. Lots of protein. You eat a couple squares of that. It's 30 grams of protein, which is a really nice target.
Yeah, that is good, because if you can do that for every meal, then you're good to go.
It's easy. We eat on that all week.
Yeah.
So if you make that, and you can have bread with it too. And
then that is super easy. You don't have to follow a recipe.
Right.
Even.
It's four ingredients. I make that every week.
Okay.
And if you had that with a piece of bread, you'd be solid.
Yeah.
You'd be
way
good.
better than right now when I'm like always starving by lunch. And then you just like everything else, honestly, there's probably a spiritual lesson there. But when you allow yourself to get super hungry and super desperate, you just don't make the best choices, because you're really acting emotionally.
Right.
Rather than, it's like your discernment can't even really function, because all you can think of is the immediate hunger, feelings of starvation and panic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if someone is coming to you for your services, like what does that look like? Is it individual? Do you have different packages for different stages of life, or what is that like?
Well, I've recently moved away from one-on-one consultations. I feel like the direction God has put me in is to really teach as many people as I can. And so I have a group. It's called the Christian Health Club. That's also the name of my podcast, where I talk a lot about this information. And within that health club membership, I have all kinds of programs that address all of these things. We address carbohydrate load and fasting and protein meals and timing and all kinds of different things. Because one thing I want people to also realize is that it takes time to implement these things. It's a habit changing, ongoing process of making choices for our body. It's not about a short-term diet, 30 days, 3 months. We got to wake up every day and make choices about the food that we make, and when we're going to go to sleep, and the movement that we're going to get. And so I've just decided to move to really group programs to teach people kind of more the comprehensive load of that, and really take time to implement it with them. And so that's the way that I work with people now.
All right, last sponsor for the day is Jase Medical. You might have experienced some of the drug shortages that have been happening that have really thrown people for a loop. It's really unfortunate, but with supply chain issues, some people just aren't able to get the prescriptions that they rely on in a timely manner. You don't want to run into trouble like that, especially if you're talking about antibiotics or maybe a prescription that you take that your life literally depends on. So you need to go to jasemedical.com. They'll take you through their telemedicine process. They'll get you a year-long stash of the medications that you and your family rely on a daily basis, as well as antibiotics for the most common infections. And maybe you'll never need to break into this emergency stash, but again, it's just better to be safe than sorry when it comes to this. So go to jasemedical.com, use code Allie at checkout for a discount. That's jasemedical.com, code Allie. Do you give advice to moms about how to get their children, because you're a mom of 3 and they're older now.
Yes.
So, but when they were younger, how were you implementing these principles for them?
Right. Just cooking, giving this food. Did they always want it? No. But what you have in the house, as a mom, we have so much influence over what our children eat. And I always say also, the most important thing to do, first of all, is to steward your body well, to be that example, right? Because they're watching. They're watching what you do. And they do soak up so much more by observing you, just the way they observe your marriage or the way that you work, anything. Also, the way that you take care of yourself or don't. So first and foremost, that. And when you are preparing and have that food making for yourself, you're also making it for your family. And this is what we're having. This is it. This is what we got. If you're hungry, this is it. This is what we're eating. And, also upgrading the best that you can. I won't say that I don't eat perfectly. My family doesn't eat perfectly, but we do the best we can. And I always try to upgrade our food. So do my kids eat chips? Yeah, they eat chips, but I'm going to find the best upgraded version of chips that I can find, right? We're going to use, try to find something that doesn't use seed oils. We're going to try to find something that, maybe is non-GMO. If I'm going to eat tortilla chips, they're going to be non-genetically modified. Just making the best decisions that you can. Now, when they do get older and they get in school, I will say I have teenagers and they don't want to listen to my advice.
Yeah.
And when you start...
Oh, really? My parents who are listening to this are thinking, wow, Allie always listens to our advice.
Right.
Yeah.
Like every parent's like, yeah, of course they don't. Well, and when you have less control, that's the thing, is when they're little, you have so much more control over what they're doing, And then as they get older and make those decisions, they're not always great decisions. But with my kids, I'm just praying and taking stock in the fact that they have good roots. I've planted the seeds. They know, and I feel like they'll come back around. They'll come back around to it, and they know that our food affects our body. And so when they want to feel better, they know what to do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of them having to make that choice for themselves.
And again, there's such a parallel there too with the Christian life. And I've heard that from so many parents. They plant those seeds of the gospel when they're young. They do everything they can to disciple their kid. Then maybe they're discouraged because in the teen years or early 20s or in college, it seems like their kids aren't following the path that they laid out for them.
Yes.
But gosh, so often those seeds bloom later in life and the kids look back and they say, gosh, I remember what I learned in church. I remember that Bible passage. I know that hymn. And so, gosh, there's so many different ways that we can sow those seeds for our kids, spiritual and also physical. You're right. They look back and they're like, wait, I remember those lessons.
Right. I know. Yes, I know what to do. And so, yeah, I really do think they come back around. And when they start caring, kids are so much more resilient, but with that aging process, things don't work as well as they used to. And so like, oh yeah, maybe I should eat more protein. Maybe I should, I'd like my skin to look a little clearer. Yeah. Mom told me that that. So yeah, they will come back around.
What is your, I would just say like final message, or like, how would you encapsulate what you wish people knew? I know this is a big question. There's probably a million ways that you could answer it, but what do you wish people knew about being healthy, food, our bodies? If you just had like, okay, you got 30 seconds to tell the world how to think about food and eating and weight loss, dieting, all those things, what would you say?
I say the creator of your body knows the perfect foods for your body, made the perfect provision for your body. Use God's word as your compass. Eat plant foods, eat animal foods. Know that your body is designed with an amazing resilience. It is always for you. It is on your side. And when you give it what it needs, it knows exactly what to do. And just honoring that self-stewardship and knowing that we use our body to glorify the kingdom, to be the hands and feet of Christ in the world. As we started this, kind of coming back around, that our bodies take us through this gift of life, and stewarding well means that we show up to all that God has called us to do. And so always keeping that first and first and foremost, way over the scale, way over the, am I going to fit in my reunion dress or whatever it is. That is a very crown for the day experience. It's very fleeting. But when we're taking care of our body as a vessel of the Holy Spirit, it's just a complete different focus. And I think we do take it more seriously. Just,
definitely
have a different viewpoint about it.
Exactly. And the Christian viewpoint is different because we actually care about the body more than anyone because it is the dwelling place for the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And that is the why behind so many of God's commands. Of course, he cares about our hearts and our souls and our mind and all of that. But nutrition, just as anything else we do with our body, it matters. It matters because God gave us these bodies purposely, and he
Yes.
loves our bodies. That's not just why he commanded the things he did about food, but also part of why he gives us the commands that he does about marriage and sexuality, how we spend our time, how we're supposed to refuse the temptation to worry, to be anxious, to fear. All of these things have an effect on our bodies.
Yes.
And God really cares about our bodies. He loves our bodies. He wants us to love our bodies. And Christianity is so interesting in that it cares about the body so much that we actually read about a resurrection of the bodies.
Right.
People sometimes think of human beings as just oh, well, the body is temporary. It's just about appearances. It's just superficial. Here today, gone tomorrow. Partly true in that, yeah, we're all going to age and beauty fades and all of that. But the body matters forever. That's how much God cares about the body, how much he cares about gender, how much he cares about life, how much he cares about what we put in our bodies, that it actually lasts. It lasts forever. And it really is stewardship, like you said.
It is. It is stewardship. And, and I'll just say that the body is a ground where the enemy really tries to interfere and get in. If he can get in and make us not only physically unwell with these health habits, but keep us in mind drama about our diet and our weight and all these things. And it just distracts us from all that we're called to do here. I mean, Eve was tempted by food.
So true.
Right in the very beginning. And so truly, it is spiritual warfare when we are not stewarding our bodies and thinking of it in the way that, gosh, this is the way that we show up in the world. Yeah. To be to spread God's love and his message.
Yes, and amen. And where can people find you?
TheChristianNutritionist.com. That's where I am everywhere, on Facebook, Instagram, website. The Christian Health Club podcast is where I go into all of these topics more deeply. And so.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.